Welcome to the Developers Who Test podcast, a podcast for developers who embrace test automation so they can ship better quality software faster and have more fun doing it. I'm your host, Chris Harbert, and I'm here today with Nikolai Grabner. Nikolai is a senior software engineer and technical lead at Enigma Solutions, where he brings a background in performance testing and quality engineering to modern software delivery. And prior to that, he served as a performance test manager at Inspired Testing, and he's been in the trenches of software quality across the full stack. Welcome to Developers Who Test, Nikolai.
Thanks, Chris. Nice to speak to you again since the conference TestCon last October.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. So we have a really exciting topic lined up for folks today. You've been doing a lot of interesting work with LLMs and RAGs, and specifically how to evaluate their performance. So I guess let's just jump right in. Can you tell folks who might not be familiar, what is a RAG and how does that relate to LLMs?
Okay, so if you imagine an LLM as a judge in a courtroom who knows a lot about law, he knows a lot and he has many years' experience. So people ask him questions related to law, he can usually answer the question. So what a RAG is, it's a more specialized form of information. So what the judge doesn't know, like based on, say it's just a specialist branch of the law, he will go, I don't know this, please ask the RAG, which is more or less just a database library filled with whatever information you want to put in it based on specialities. So the judge will go, okay, I don't know this answer fully, please consult the RAG. So the RAG goes and gets the information, presents it to the judge, and then the judge repeats it, puts it together and repeats it. Would be the best way, simple way I know how to describe what a RAG is. Now, an enterprise RAG is what I'm building right now is a lot of documents related to an entire company's operations that have to be ingested into the system and queried.
Yeah, how would you say? So it stands for retrieval augmented.
Generation.
What do you stand for? I forget right now.
Yeah, retrieval augmented generation. Yeah.
Yeah, generation. Thank you. And so, how is that different than just using a database, or are you just using a database? Do you use
Well,
a specific
yes,
kind for
yes.
LLMs?
Well, the whole idea, I mean, everybody's jumping on this AI bandwagon, and the whole idea behind this is companies, it is a database and it's called a vector database. And there's nothing stopping a company from using OpenAI or Anthropic's. They could build their own RAG and upload it to Anthropic, but Anthropic and OpenAI would then have all the company's proprietary information, so it's not private. So what I'm building is it's a private LLM that's installed within the company's network that will never go out to the outside world. It's all the information stays within the company's infrastructure. So if someone wants to ask a question about HR policy, they can just go onto the chat bot, ask the question, and get an answer straight away. They don't have to go through any kind of, like, sometimes an office work would have to go to multiple people, multiple pieces of software just to get one bit of information. So this solves that problem. It's a single point of getting information, and it's private.
Yeah, so the LLM in general is trained on, say, publicly available information. It teaches the LLM how to have a conversation that we feel is fairly realistic when we're talking to it. But then whenever you get to specialized knowledge, you have an incentive to potentially keep that specialized knowledge within your organization. Setting up a RAG with a vector database gives you the ability to do that. And so then you're still using the trained LLM model, but it's getting specialized knowledge from your vector database.
That's exactly right. So you wouldn't have to, if for new employees, they start in a company, they can just ask whatever questions they want to the chatbot. There wouldn't really be a need to have a handover, or if someone's leaving, the need to have a handover, because all that information is already in the vector database.
Yeah. So, what have you seen as some of the challenges that engineering teams face when setting this up inside their organizations?
Yes. Okay. So I have many war stories building this this application, but the reason why I actually started building it, because it was based on my market research about a year ago when I founded my company, Enigma Solutions. I was doing a lot of research as to finding gaps in the market, and I heard from a few colleagues of mine that companies were concerned about privacy, but they were building internal RAG systems, and I quote, that were crap. They didn't work properly. And that's what, I'm a QA tester, so which means I'm curious, right? And that really got me thinking about, okay, there's a potential gap. Maybe I can build a private RAG that's good.
Yeah.
And if I test it right, if I thoroughly test it and build it with a QA mindset, I can't see any reason why it can't be almost as good. Well, probably not as good as ChatGPT, but up there, maybe 85% as good.
Cool. So you saw this need and you went for it. How would you say the tester's mindset helped you be better at building software in this AI assisted software world?
Yes, testers are really going to have to adapt because it's a different type of testing. It's not like your average test case pass or fail scenario. Um, it's more like I'm going to test this with 100 prompts. I'm going to run an automated test with 100 prompts, and I'll get different responses per prompt, but sometimes the same prompt will get two responses. So you could type in the same prompt twice and get two different results. So how do you measure that? You have to use a scoring mechanism, and you have to use statistics. That's what I have done anyway.
Mm.
When I built my RAG system, I also built a testing platform so that I would get straight away a comprehensive result set to tell me whether or not the data is healthy or not. And there's a lot of variables in that testing that you have to um, tick off. So what I would recommend for testers nowadays would be, I mean, AI is brilliant for test generation. It's brilliant for generating test cases. You could do it for that. I'm sure many testers are already doing that. But also, um, you can you could learn tools like PromptFoo to test LLMs, and you can use OpenAI to do that. And have you can even use AI to create the data for you, create the YAML file, and put it into a prompt food test, and give it 100 prompts or whatever, and see what kind of results you get, and use the temperature, which is more or less the creativity factor. So if you increase the temperature, it increases the how creative the response is going to be.
Mm. I love that you bring up the statistical approach. Reminds me of the Six Sigma days of, when they were talking about manufacturing and variability was the enemy of quality in manufacturing. Do you feel like software is going down that path now, where we need more of like a Six Sigma approach to software quality, if the same prompt can produce different answers each time?
Well, absolutely, yeah. So I've got a scoring mechanism, um, and it's all to do with embedding and chunking, which is part of what's in the vector database. And getting that right for me was quite difficult to learn how to ingest data from, say, PDF files and having good data in the quadrant database after those files were ingested. But to answer your question, the scoring mechanism I'm using when I run tests is basically the precision and coverage and how context questions are answered without hallucinating and without drifting. And that's the secret. That's always been the bane of AI, is that hallucination is making up a story. You ask it a question, it gives you a completely different answer. It's not even in context. And drifting is staying in the same context but giving you the wrong answer. And those are the things testers have to watch out for. And to do that, you need very strict testing controls, such as the scoring mechanism, to do so. And they can learn. They can learn. I learned how to do all this stuff just using ChatGPT and Anthropic and the IDEs that I use for creating this app.
Yeah. So if detecting hallucinations, detecting drift sounds like it's an important skill for people to have when they're interacting with LLMs now. Uh, obviously one way to do that is to be a domain expert, which a lot of testers are domain experts in their software. So that's helpful. Uh, but a lot of us are using LLMs to answer questions we aren't experts in. That's the benefit we're getting from it. Any tips on how to detect a hallucination when you're not the expert, or do you just have to be the expert?
Well, it helps if you're an expert, and I would recommend to testers to start off um, ingesting and querying stuff that they're very, very good at, just to get a feel about how it does hallucinate and how it does drift, and then they know the right answers, so they can train their mind to detect it better for when they are querying it for stuff that they don't know. It's helped me anyway. And also, I I usually, if my intuition tells me that the answer is wrong, I usually find multiple sources to find the right answer, even just Googling it, old-fashioned Google. Remember
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm noticing, I don't know if you're noticing this as well, but more and more the Google search results also lead with an AI response.
They do. They do.
And when comparing the AI response I'm getting in the Google search results, seems like it's very often not factually correct compared to what some of the other models might say.
Yeah.
And to do some experiments, sometimes I'll have Chat GPT, Claude, and Gemini all answer the same question. And I'm just surprised at how often they get different answers. Have you incorporated any kind of multi-model approaches to your
Yes, I
scoring or how you verify how well you're doing?
yes. So you could do it manually, but you could also, I mean, one of the great things about going to that TestCon in October was a workshop I did, and it was all about prompt foo. And you can get prompt foo. You just need the API keys for Anthropic, the API keys for OpenAI, and Gemini. So you could have 100 prompts, right? And get 3 responses per prompt on different platforms, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Gemini. So there's another way of, if you don't know something, you can plug it directly into 3 different platforms or even more.
Yeah, I have noticed, you can also ask follow-up questions, and I think
Yeah.
that's kind of I wonder if there's a way to formalize that in a testing approach, but I know when you're just asking a one-off question, you can say, "Hey, have you verified all of your sources? What were your sources? I'm not sure this is correct." And that causes it to be a little more careful. And I'm wondering if we should make that part of our test cases.
Well, yeah, I actually get my tool. It's called SAP Bot. My tool is SAP Bot. I actually get it to output where I found the information because sometimes it does hallucinate, and sometimes it does, if it doesn't know the information from what's stored in the database, it will just ask the LLM directly. So I want to know when that happens. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes, you know, if the documents are not there, ingested into the database, they're just not there. And you will still want to get some kind of an answer. So it falls back to the LLM. But it tells me. And I also have a mechanism so that the end users, it's the same in ChatGPT. You can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, the response, whether or not it's good or bad. And then that gets put into a separate Postgre database and analyzed. And basically, I want to build some kind of self-healing model so that it goes automatically into the good and into the bad responses and self-heals.
Today's episode of the Developers Who Test podcast is brought to you by Testery. Did you know that most companies that run end-to-end tests are underutilizing their testing infrastructure, and that this waste results in slower, more expensive test runs? Testery automatically optimizes your test runs so you get results 2 to 8 times faster. The best part is you don't need to switch testing frameworks or CI/CD platforms in order to get results. To find out just how much faster your test runs could be, visit testery.com today. Cool. Have you seen any challenges in terms of performance, reliability, scalability? Not so much just with how are you getting a good response or a bad response from an LLM, but is the server you're relying on going down? Are you able to ask 100 questions in parallel, 1,000 questions in parallel? What are some of those other challenges that people might face when they're starting to bring RAGs into their organizations?
Well, the first thing, based on experience, very good question. Based on experience, when I first started building this app, I wasn't aware of this technology called CUDA, which is basically getting getting the mechanism to use GPU, which is a lot more powerful than CPU. So sometimes it would take up to 5 minutes for me to get responses. And I was reading this blog one day about CUDA, and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So what I did was I plugged the LLM model to use the GPU and all the other models like the embedding models and the re-ranker models to use CPU. So that I was able to, I mean, it still takes a while for the responses to generate, but it's down from 5 minutes to about 15 seconds. And the responses are streamed as well. So you get some kind of response within about 5 seconds.
Cool.
Yeah. But
Was there was
I
there
mean, the whole
anything that surprised you as you were embarking on this journey where, you expected it to go one way and then just really caught you off guard?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm using this tool called Cairo, and it was, I've got SAPbot and I've got the test ops platform. So I was using Cairo to build a test ops platform, and I got it to um, run a test in Ragas and spit out in a terminal whether it passed or failed, and it was giving me constant failures. So then I was like, okay, I've tried a few things, I've tweaked, it should be passing. And then I went into the raw JSON file, result file, and I saw that it was actually all passing, but the tool Cairo had made a mistake in that it inverted the passes and fails. So it caught me off guard for a few days. But you really have to watch out for things like that when you are building with AI. You have to be so careful. And how I did it was it's best to split your project up into phases and do the testing after each phase and have very clear requirements and very clear roadmap and a design specification. And even with all of those things, it can still make mistakes, but it's better to have all of those things.
Yeah, it's just such a wild world we live in. The example you just gave reminded me of something that happened very recently. I'm using an LLM with an MCP server in order to fetch calendar events, and I noticed the query that was getting sent to the MCP server from the LLM. Uh, the start date was after the end date. And I said, "No, no, 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 like, you're sending it the wrong query, that's why you're not finding any events." And it, it did its thinking, and then it said, "Well, the tool is confusing because the tool actually has start and end date inverted." And
Hmm.
so I
Yeah.
think, and I'm not totally sure because I still need to keep digging on this, but I think the MCP server itself had a bug, probably because it was AI generated. And then the LLM was able to figure that out, but then just ran with it anyway, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. That.
like, so here's where I think that's dangerous is we ended up with something that worked without thinking about it. AI figured it out, came up with something that worked. But there's like this landmine sitting in there of the start date and end date are inverted. And I guarantee you that's a bug waiting to happen at some point in the future. Somebody's gonna say, "Oh, we need to fix this. We're gonna flip this," and then now my stuff is gonna break.
That sounds very familiar in the journey I've been on as well. Stuff like that happening, and it really does enhance the fact that we need QA in AI. We need to proper QA processes in AI systems, and it's not really talked about that much. I mean, just the talk you gave at TestCon last October, Chris, about you trying to pay that bill to that government
Oh,
agency.
yeah.
That was my favorite talk. I was like, I'm so passionate about QA and software testing. When I do find a bug in production system, I just can't understand. And then I kind of imagine the incompetence of the testing team to allow things like that to happen, even if it even was tested.
Yeah. Yeah, so for folks who
You
didn't
know?
hear that talk, I mean, the general story was I just spent an entire morning simply trying to pay a bill, so I got a letter that said, "Hey, you need to pay a bill. Go to this website." You go to the website, and, I think it started out with I couldn't log in. And so then I go to reset my password and it said my password was invalid, but it didn't tell me why my password was invalid. So I just had to kind of guess what are the password rules. Finally get the password reset, finally get in there and I go to pay the bill and it says a payment method is required. That's where say is it going to be a check payment or a credit card? And the drop down was empty, so I couldn't process the payment anyway. I went out to buy a printer because my printer was broken, and then I go to print it, and then the new printer didn't work. Just this one thing after
It
another
was,
of everybody letting us down from a quality perspective. And
yeah.
I think like, now that AI is doing so much of this, like just how often is everyone's morning going to look like that if we don't have a more rigorous approach to testing AI, right?
Yeah, especially with vibe coding. I mean, vibe coding's great and all, and it gets a bad rap as well, but you've got to keep it on a tight leash and you've got to have clear specifications, requirements, design spec, and also like almost every update you've got to test, like regression test, every even small update.
Yeah, so I love in your LinkedIn profile you say turning vibe coded AI into production grade systems. Uh what does that mean to you? Like, what are the steps that people should do if they want to turn vibe coded AI into a production grade system? Or is vibe coding even the wrong approach? Should they be doing something else if it's a production grade system?
Well, I've demonstrated that you can vibe code it and work, but you have to be very strict and very disciplined. I mean, if you're not, it's just wishful building. And it's great if you have a tester's mindset while building it. I mean, I see vibe coding as a junior dev team.
Hmm.
It's no different to working for someone and getting the developers to build something based on a spec, like for example, a Greenfields project, and they build it for you and then you test it, right? So why isn't it the same with vibe coding? And why can't you vibe code something, pretend it's a developer, which it kind of is, and then test it really well and have test cases and even have a testing platform set up, which is even better. If you build a testing platform as you're building the AI system, so that you, I mean, it's a lot of work at first, right? But all you have to do is press play. It runs and tells you if it passes or fails, and then you could get the IDE to fix the failures.
Yeah, and now for anybody who hasn't tried like Playwright MCP is just leaps and bounds above where it was even recently. So if you haven't tried Playwright MCP in the last 4 weeks, try Playwright MCP. Testry now has an MCP, so my platform Testry runs automated tests reliably at scale. And so you can actually ship your Playwright test to Testry, and it'll run the same thing every time in parallel and give the results back directly to your LLM. So there's really no excuse now for people not to have really good end-to-end tests in place. They're going to run quickly and reliably. They're going to integrate with your LLM so that you don't really need to do the vibe coding anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be an automated tester when I first started software testing back in 1999, and I learned with this tool called WinRunner. And just to get it to, yeah, and I've also had a go at Playwright MCP as well to test SAP Bot, and I was like, just this has come leaps and bounds compared to like having to have all these objects stored in the database and synchronize it with what you're trying to test in WinRunner would sometimes take weeks for even just one test to code. And then you do it with Playwright. And I'm not doing, and I tried it manually with Playwright as well, and the test tripped over. And then I got AI to automatically generate the tests based on test cases, and it was just flawless. And it was a half an hour's work instead of weeks of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really pretty
It was
incredible.
amazing.
And one of the topics that's come up a lot in the last few weeks in some of my conversations is this idea of when we're working with AI systems, we need kind of a hybrid approach between AI figuring out how to do something and then tried and true methods of running reliable workflows on a repetitive basis. Uh, and I think Playwright MCP is a good example of that. It's doing a really remarkable job of helping you figure out what to test or how to write the test, what to put in the test. But it still makes sense to actually have the test itself something that's locked in, checked into source control, running as part of a CI/CD pipeline. Because really, like that's what protects us from ourselves when we're using AI, right?
Exactly. And I mean, with AI systems, you almost have to, and live systems, you almost have to have it running 24 hours a day because if someone uploads a faulty document into a RAG system, it'll skew the results of all the queries.
Mm.
It'll be bad data. And you've got to, I mean, what's to stop someone from doing that? And it will happen, right? Someone's going to be, oh, I think this picked, oh, by accident picked the wrong document or something like that. It will skew the results. So I want to, in the future, sometime in the near future, I want to set up a model that does that behind the scenes to just continuously
Mm.
test the system non-stop and create an alert if something fails.
Yeah. In my previous role, I used to work for a big data analytics company, and we had thousands of machine learning models that were running on streaming data sets to predict various things. It was marketing and analytics, so we're predicting, who's going to buy a washing machine, and are you male or female, and what's your age range. And it was all to optimize advertising campaigns. And we set up some automated tests for the gender model, which was predicting male or female. And one day I came in and the precision dropped from, it was something like 90% accurate down to like 40% accurate, which if you're predicting male female is actually worse than random.
Wow.
And so our automated test failed, and it said, "Hey, there's an issue. The precision and accuracy of this model dropped significantly." And it turned out that performance optimization was put in place that changed a data type from, uh, I think it was like a car field to a Boolean, or from a Boolean to a car field. I don't remember which way. But what used to be true, false, and unknown got hammered into just true or false. And so all of
Mm.
those unknown values ended up getting predictions for them, which threw the model accuracy off significantly.
Wow. So
And
just a conflict change
yeah,
did that.
and it was a performance change, but it was also pulling in a different library that just handled true, false, different. Uh,
Hmm.
and so I bring that up because one of the things I think we've experienced with AI in particular is we've got a real dependency problem. And I remember this happening when we started rolling out JavaScript. Like, JavaScript dependencies were so unreliable all over the place until it settled down a bit. And I feel like with AI, there's this massive dependency problem that's not talked about of, are you depending on version 1 of an API, version 2? Was the model trained on 3 years ago or yesterday? Uh, what solutions do you see in place, or how can we improve that situation with the dependencies, and how does that relate to testing?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, you could have some kind of how application performance monitoring works. You could have something like that, except that it pings like an API, or it goes into the infrastructure and cross references it to what it should be or what the last release was to make sure that there were no unexpected changes or anomalies or something like that, and just compare it with the last release just to make sure that everything's ticked off and running correctly, like an APM tool.
Mhm.
That could be one way.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting space to watch, is just all of the tools that are going to spring up around AI that are analogs to things we've had in software development for years. Like, what does
For
the
sure.
build server look like? What does your testing orchestration platform look like? What does your performance monitoring, logging? And we can still leverage a lot of the same tools, but it feels like there are new needs cropping up.
I mean, another important field for AI testing should be research and development, because this technology is moving so fast. You need a team dedicated just to research and development to test all of these things that you just mentioned, to test AI, testing AI, and to find the best solution. And I'm sure new methodologies, new method testing methodologies will be born out of this whole AI revolution as well.
Who do you think should own that in the organization? Do you think that should be, everybody on engineering should be experimenting and sharing their successes? Or do you think having a specialized set aside team to try to tackle that problem is a better approach?
I reckon a specialized team, but also also works with developers and testers to work alongside each other and collaborate
Why do you think a specialized team? Like, just
for research and
yeah.
development. Um, just to for latest trends, latest AI tools. They could be testing on whatever companies they're working for infrastructure. They could set up. You could even get testers to do it. They could set up testing environments with these new tools to see how good they are. Proof of concepts.
Yeah, that was one of the things I liked about being on the test infrastructure side of things and testing is we got to experiment with things that the company didn't consider were production ready yet. So like a good example, I think it was about 2015, maybe 2012, somewhere around there. Like I got an opportunity to use Docker, and Docker was a fairly new technology at the time. Uh, and part of why we got to use it for our testing servers is because people were like, well, this is a way to try it out where we know we're not going to break production and we can see if it's ready. Do you think testers should be pushing for doing those kinds of experiments with AI where it's like, hey, we have test systems. Let us use this approach on our test systems. So it's a safe experiment.
Absolutely. I mean, it'd be great to be allowed to do that within a company. A lot of companies I've worked for have locked down their systems and they don't allow you access to even monitor some servers when you're conducting a load
Mm.
test. But it would be great if companies did allow proof of concept to be set up. And Docker is a great technology. I built SAP Bot using
Mm.
Docker containers.
What do you think's the risk to organizations that don't let their people experiment?
I guess they won't be able to keep up. They won't be as efficient. They won't be up to date with the latest cutting edge tech, and they'll fall behind and become dinosaurs.
I think the time frame for how long it takes to become a dinosaur now is so much shorter than it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, a few months in the AI world is like so much happens.
Yeah. So my
I mean,
dad,
if you,
was also a software developer before I became a software developer, and so he got started, sometime in the '80s, I think is when he started his software development journey, and, I remember the days of, Microsoft would come out with a new version of Visual Basic or something, and they would print a new book, and then the new book would get mailed out to all of the developers, and like that was when you went from version 2 to version 3. uh
hmm,
Now the the pace at which we're running is like that entire book's worth of content might have been what changed yesterday afternoon.
yeah,
uh
I mean, you know what? Another good, I mean, that going to TestCon and learning about those all that tech was a game changer for me. So keeping up with research and development slash testing slash AI, going to these trade shows slash conferences is also a great idea to get the latest info on cutting edge technologies that someone else has done and proven already, so you could just learn from them.
yeah, I think that's so critically important, and that's a big part of why we do this podcast. uh I started the podcast because I remembered early in my journey, especially when I was, uh, less than 3 to 5 years experience. You've learned a lot about how to do your job, but you've learned how your company does it, and you shouldn't have to change to another company to learn how other companies do what they're doing. And so that's what I love about going to places like TestCon, other conferences. Uh, it's an opportunity to see what other people are doing and where that bar is moving without having to change jobs necessarily in order to do it, or listening to podcasts like this one.
Exactly. Yeah. Every CEO should go and take a team of developers, testers, and R&D people.
Yeah, and I run into talking about the bar being different. I run into some organizations where their test runs take 10, 15, even more than 20 hours to run. And then other organizations with the same number of tests are doing it in less than an hour. And if you think about the pace of delivery in your organization, right? If you can only run your test run once per day, what does that mean from your ability to ship software regularly, to make sure that the quality is in place, versus another team with the exact same number of people on their team, exact same number of tests. They're just doing it a little smarter of a way, or leveraging some of the platforms that are available. They're running that same test suite potentially 10 times a day on different versions of the software. That one company, they might be shipping software at a rate 10 or more times faster than you are with the same team, just because they're using more modern approaches. And to me, if you're
Yeah,
not out there going to the conferences, talking to people, you don't necessarily realize how far things have drifted in terms of those benchmarks. So,
for sure. I mean, I didn't even know what an MCP server was before I went to that conference. And I went to, it was a testing conference, but I made sure I went to all the AI talks.
yeah.
So then I was taking a lot of notes and I implemented all of the stuff that I learned into my project.
That is awesome. So it is made and this was the one from last year, not the one from before. So this entire last
Yeah,
year has been quite the journey for you.
absolutely. Learning
Yeah.
curve. And the most, the testing has been the most fun part because, like any other software application I've tested for the many clients that I've worked for in the past, you learn so much just by testing. You learn by doing.
Yeah. Well, that is such a good reminder for us, and I feel like I could chat with you all day, but unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our scheduled time here. So once again, we've been speaking with Nikolai, testing expert, uh, regular presenter at conferences. Where can folks find you next?
That is a very good question. Where are you going to next, Chris?
So my next one, I'll be presenting at Star East in Orlando, and I should know the exact dates. I believe it's April 28th to May 1st. I think the conference might start before that, but those are the days that I'm planning on being there. So I'll be doing Star East. Still waiting to hear back on a few of the other regular conferences. They haven't all made their announcements yet. But then I'll also be returning to TestCon later this fall. So hope to see you there again.
Yes, me too. I'll see you there, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikolai. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.